Have you ever played a game that seems to be going well until a certain moment makes you stop and just sort of sit there? You scratch your head, you think, what, really? That's what we're doing here? Some games seem to have this notion that just because they're set in a fantasy world that beating people with a crowbar simply won't do the job. What we get as a result of this is some game designers foisting ridiculous tools of mayhem onto their players. Weapons that one would think a rational human being would never be able to conceive of. So without further ado, here is our list of top 5 most absurd weapons in gaming that the game seem to want you to totally take seriously. Coming in at number 5, the blue shell from Mario Kart 64 and beyond. The entire Mario franchise is video game absurdism. It is not meant to make sense, so when you're presenting with a winged nuclear-powered kart-seeking turtle shell, it's not actually as awkward as you might think. That said, the blue shell is absolutely ridiculous. How does it know who's in first place? Is the turtle shell sentient? Is it some sort of living weapon? It certainly soars along, looking for just the right victim, only to smash itself into them in a ball of fire and anger. Coming in at number 4, Aquaman's Trident. No, I'm just kidding. Stranger's Crossbow from Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath. The Oddworld series is another foray into the absurdist realm, clearly not meant to be bound by traditional views of, well, anything. What we've got here is Stranger's Crossbow, a prime example of a conventional weapon that has been tweaked into the realm of what? Crossbows are pretty cool weapons, but they're not quite edgy enough for a game like Oddworld. They need that little extra something. That something being the ability to shoot animals. Now, not shoot at animals, but shoot animals out of your bow. Skunks, beetles, slugs, you name it. There are about 9 different ammo choices for your critter cannon, all of which have different effects. At number 3, this one's a doozy, the Cerebral Bore from Turok 2, Seeds of Evil and beyond. Now, it is literally what its name implies, a weapon for hollowing out the skull of an enemy. This weapon is the quintessential example of what happens when a developer lets their inner child run rampant, when they just get a little too carried away. The Cerebral Bore functions by shooting small, hooked, brainwave-seeking robots that fly around and lock onto an enemy skull before burrowing inside and exploding. Because simply shooting your enemy in the head just does not suffice. Bullets aren't good enough. This guy needs incredibly complex micro-robots to hunt down and destroy specifically the brain of all who oppose him. Alright, at numero dos, Gunblade, Final Fantasy VIII. JRPGs are notorious for having some of the silliest weapon designs out there. Swords taller than the little girls that hold them, robots who fire bullets out of each of their individual fingers, the list goes on. The worst offender, the Gunblade of Final Fantasy VIII. This weapon doesn't even make sense whatsoever. Why would you ever make a Gunblade? It doesn't actually fire bullets. There isn't a barrel. It's just a sword with the handle of a gun. You pull the trigger to have the blade vibrate and deal additional damage. What? Not to mention swinging a sword with a handle like that is hell on your wrist. The Gunblade is this high on the list because it's as useless as it is absurd. Rounding out our countdown in number 1, the Skyhook from BioShock Infinite. The Skyhook has it all. Set in a completely serious setting, check. Ridiculously inefficient, check. Unexplained behaviors, check. Needlessly complex, double check. There was no reason to make the Skyhook. It doesn't add to the setting whatsoever. It's not integral to the plot. It doesn't allow the player to do anything that a far simpler and more reasonable equivalent wouldn't have achieved, except for magic jumping. But if you're bringing in magic magnetism, then who cares? Nothing about the Skyhook's design can be accredited to that functionality. To bring this all around, Booker DeWitt doesn't do anything with the Skyhook, again, magic aside, that Gordon Freeman couldn't do with his crowbar. So why make a crazy spinning multi-hooked gun contraption if all you're gonna use it for is a fancy blunt object? In the video game world, anything is limitless, and the amount of ridiculous and absurd weapons is indeed limited only to your imagination. There are far too many to put on this list, so tell us in the comments about what weapons you've used that you couldn't comprehend. Just don't use any of them on us, please. Tell us on Facebook or tweet us, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Fanatical 5s, and drop by our site for great articles and features at thegamefanatics.com.